right. I think that we are live. Rob, can you hear me all right?
Listen, I can hear you. I can see you. All of the above, baby. Let's go.
Rob just gave me a very quick tutorial on how to run videos on the live stream. So all of that fanciness was thanks to the sports card therapist.
Listen, it's all about self-improvement, my man. It's all about moving forward.
He's like, you want to go live? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And then he's like, wait, you don't know how to do these 9 things that should be very easy? No. Dude, how's your week been so far? How was your Monday?
Good, man. Good. I tell you, I don't know if it's just me or what. I mean, family's going great, but I feel like my mind has been on national so much recently. Like
Oh,
I
really?
don't I don't know about you. I mean, like talk about your weekend, talk about how you're doing, but I'm like my head's already kind of in July.
It's weird how it feels like we just had the national though, in a way, like, doesn't it feel like the last, like, whatever, like 8 months just flew by? I mean, I feel like we were just in Atlantic City, and then you're right. I mean, now we're only a few months out, and yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun for sure. And you've got a big event. Let's
Yeah.
just dive into that real quick while we're on the subject. Talk about the big event you've got going on at the national.
So me and a group of hobby friends that I've met through doing cards and whatnot. We've kind of branded ourselves the Wolf Pack because it sounds really lame. So we branded ourselves the Wolf Pack, and really just were like, let's try to throw an event here. But the thing is, with throwing an event at national, there's like so much red tape that you have to try to like get through. Like you need approval from like the highest people that have been doing national forever, and it kind of does feel like national and kind of like the hobby. Sometimes it could be like a good old boys club, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
where it's like, unless you really have like good relationships, like behind the back kind of handshakes, it could be really hard to pull things off. so
Yeah,
so i
you're
i
slipping
ended up
guys Benjamins and stuff.
I don't know. You tell me. You tell me, Mr. Illuminati. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that actually, so is it like are you doing like off campus dorm style where or is it like on campus? This is like a national event.
No, so it's technically not a national event, but it is directly across the street from the convention center. So like literally in the one space where we tried calling and did not need approval by, I don't know who's the highest guy in the hobby. I don't know. Like the trifecta of like
I just
Dr.
go
Beckett,
straight.
Ken Golden, and
Oh, no, not
Gary
those
V.
guys. I just go straight to the influencer cards that just came out and that are coming out in that new top set. Did you see that?
I
That's
did.
those
I
5.
did.
I immediately scanned through looking for your name. I'm like, I know I'm going to see sports card therapist, and
I
you know
was
what?
waiting to
Series
see
2,
you.
series 2. We'll catch series 2.
Yeah, I guess that's gonna be it. But shout out to everyone that is getting a card in in the top
For
set,
real.
which is it's
Yeah.
amazing to think that, I think, being content creators have come that far. And I want to say shout out to Mama Breaks, because I've had her on my show, met her in person. She's an incredible person. And shout out to everyone that's, getting cards for sure. I've been in a few sets, but they've been like custom kind of sets, like the wrestling card community put together a set and
Oh, nice.
reached out to me, and yeah, just like stuff like that. So
Yeah, as goofy as it sounds, that would be really cool to have a card. Like if Topps was like, "Hey, we need you to sign these 50 cards, we can throw them in Topps packs." I'm such a nerd. I would be like, "Oh my God, this is
there
so amazing."
there's nothing goofy about that. That sounds really
It's
freaking cool.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. I know. I hope it gets to that point. Hopefully, it's not like people are like, "Hey, we're not going to buy this product." Like the public is like, "I would have bought this if there wasn't these dumb hobby influencer cards in the set or whatever." When we're in it, I'm saying not the 5 that they chose.
No, yeah, I
Congrats
hear
to
you.
those folks. Congrats to
No,
those.
yeah, I think it's really cool. I think shout out to everyone that's it's getting recognized, and it's especially, I think, if the influencers are collector driven, if it's collector driven content, I love that. you
Oh,
know
you know what? I'm open to all of it. I hope it's collector stuff. I hope it's I want it to be hobby drama stuff. I want all the stuff. You know what? Actually, section it off. Actually, like have different categories of hobby influence or whatever. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely,
Equal
definitely.
opportunity content person. I love it. All right, Patrick, what's going on? I've skipped past Ziggy, Dan, the card man. Good to see you. Chris C, Steve Splenda in the house.
Let's go.
I know there's a bunch of legends in here. Can't wait for the national. Absolutely. We are on board with that. Charles, good to see you. Good to see you. Thecarddeal.com. Mike's here to promote vintage cards. What is Dinged Corners? It's about low eye appeal cards. Yeah. Hobby Champs, good to see you, man. LT, Orlando, Collector's Dream. I think I've almost got through everybody. BF Golf, good to see you. Nelson Neves and Jacob. Dustin, what's all the smoke? Is it smoky in here? Or is that a metaphor for something else?
That's a metaphor for beef.
Oh, okay.
Do you not know that? Are you not that hip?
No, I know
You
about the
know
smoke.
that.
I was trying to figure out, well, is my house on fire? Like,
Was
look,
that so?
I'm
A
an almost
perfect dad
42-year-old
joke would have
father.
been
Yeah.
perfect dad joke would have been like, I want all the smoked brisket, smoked ribs,
That's why I've got you on the show, Rob, to bring that cool factor. We got to wrap it in.
Listen, yeah. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. So Dinged Corners is really just kind of like a collab of Sports Card Dad and Sports Card Therapist. I won't speak for Dustin, but I know that I've had a definite respect for Dustin and the content that you've put out, and I've been consuming your content for quite some time now, and I think what you bring to the hobby, which is it's informative. You bring humility. There's a lot of things that you bring, and I was looking forward to linking up with you. And I think when we first got in touch with each other, we didn't know what a link up would look like, but very quickly we said, you know what, we ended up knocking out 3 episodes, and really Dinged Corners is it's a 3-episode show, and we're going to be dropping first episode tomorrow, second episode next week, and then third episode the week after. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the response is, seeing if there is any response, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, same. I want to echo what you said. I mean, I've been watching, I think it was when you had switched over from podcast to podcast and YouTube, maybe like 18 months ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I found you the first time. And maybe you were doing some sort of collaboration with somebody else too. I can't remember exactly. But I just remember thinking like, this guy is like speaking my language, because you have a really good kind of balance between collecting style content, but then also leveling up. And hey, I'm spending pretty serious money on cards. I've got a family, and I do care about what they're worth and those sorts of things too. So I felt like you had a really good blend of that, and I could relate to it, and well spoken and all the rest of it. So yeah, no, this was awesome that we could do it.
Yeah, and we're a couple boring white guys in our 40s that have kids and a lot of responsibilities that probably on certain days we just really want to run away from. So instead of just actually running away from our life, we run away to our card room, to our exile, where we can just sit here and kind of look at our cards for a little while, and I know for me that's a big escape.
Yeah, I mean, you and I we're about the same age. I always joke with my wife. It's like, look, if this is what my midlife crisis looks like, it could be way worse. I could have done way worse than buying cardboard and going to card shows. And she agrees. She agrees with that. I'm sure your wife does too.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, my wife and I envy the guys that are like, oh, my wife, she really doesn't care. She doesn't care about the cardboard. Let me tell you something. My wife does not like cards. She feels like cards have just like moved in, and it's almost like the mistress, she's but when I come back from having a good show, though, because I set up as a dealer like once a month, usually I set up as a dealer, and every once in a while when I come home and I'm able to give her a couple bucks from what I've made, she ends up liking it. So
yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's funny too. We were out actually at a brewery with another couple, and they had their kids, and it was the first time we had hung out with them. And it's like, oh, well, what do you guys do? And we're talking about, I'm like, and I'm also a YouTuber. And then we kind of like talk about that. And the other wife was like, so, I mean, do you get are you worried that there might be like women, like hitting on him and stuff like that because he's a YouTuber? And I was like, if you knew kind of the audience, you could take a look at the YouTube analytics. And we always joke about like you get 2 or 3% that are females. It's pretty much middle-aged men. That's what we're doing here. So it was just kind of funny, like just getting into a conversation about that as like grown men, because typically we're talking about like, my teenagers are like, oh, we're on Instagram and YouTube or whatever. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and I think, it seems like there's, I don't know, I want to say there's probably, like, I look at the hobby landscape as far as the individuals that I see at shows. I'm at shows all the time, and I mean, monthly I'm setting up, and there's usually probably another weekend where I go to walk a show, and I look at it, there's, like the teenagers that are trying to do the trade up challenge, and some of them walk up with like 100K cards and their Zion, and I'm like, you can't even see over the table. What are you,
Yeah,
how do you have this kind of heat? Then there's these like entrepreneurs that are in their like early 20s, I think, that are big into flipping. And I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of collectors as well, but I think during the pandemic, a lot of them came over from flipping sneakers, was a huge thing, and they found their way into cards. So I think there's a pretty decent sized demographic, like in their early 20s, that are like that. Then I think there's these, I don't know if we're considered middle age. I just turned 40 a couple months ago. I guess that's middle aged. That I think some of us were here and never left, right, from childhood, but I think a big part of us, we take up a big part of real estate in the hobby because we grew up during the junk wax era, and we decided to come back. We decided to bring our brains, our motivation, our nostalgia, and our paychecks with us to the hobby, a
right.
few years ago. And I think that huge dynamic shift that you saw was, I think, mostly from individuals our age.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think the YouTube analytics where it talks about the majority of my audience is 35 to 44 or 35 to 45. And then of course you've got some that are older than that, of course, as well. But yeah, I mean, that bracket right there is we were here during the boom time last time. We were here, we were like kids during the last boom, and now we're back for the next boom. And then we'll probably be, back again, like we'll still be here for that in 25, 30 years when there's the next huge, huge boom or whatever. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
All right. I see in the chat there's some dysfunction here. Charles, flipping Steve, oh, come on, Charles. You're just sucking up to Steve because you won Steve's his giveaway to the national, and you're trying to win it back to back. It's just not going to happen.
Wow.
Steve, I called you out on it, Charles. Yeah, it's not going to happen 2 times in a row. You can't win like that. What's going on? Phoenix Rising, good to see you. Swayze put everything into the honky tonk, man. Rob,
Listen,
you have any thoughts?
you cannot go wrong with that. I'm more of a Hogan guy. I have a pretty big Hogan PC, but you can't go wrong with the honky tonk, man, without a doubt.
Hulk Hogan's got a nice signature. He's got kind of like the big, kind of the wavy.
Oh
it's
yeah,
a good auto.
his signatures are very easy to spot, and I think like if there's ever like a counterfeit one out there, you can spot him because his signatures are very consistent. I think even the times where he has probably rushed it, he takes his time and he signs the full name with the big exaggerated H's. The only problem I would probably say I have with Hogan with that is, and which is cool, I guess. So I can't say that, but as far as my cards and like the value, he signs everything. So he's almost like a Pete Rose.
Yeah.
It's like his signatures are just everywhere.
Yeah, I picked up kind of similarly Richard Petty, the NASCAR GOAT. He's got an awesome signature too. It's huge and like just really nice signature, but he's signed a billion things, So, but it is what it is,
Yeah, definitely.
I have a question for you. Just kind of, we'll go down a little bit of a rabbit hole because I know that you're a wrestling card guy, but you're also a vintage card guy too. Are you like, what are your thoughts on? I know that you've got kind of like the Hulk Hogan rookie card. I think you have that autograph, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Now, are you also into the new like prism stuff and the gold prisms and kind of that stuff as well, or are you just only mainly focused on like, does Hulk Hogan have a gold prism from like the new products or no?
Yeah, so he does. So Hulk Hogan has a gold prism, and so the wrestling boom that happened in the hobby, and I can't speak for everyone or everything. So if it don't apply, let it fly. If I get my statistics wrong, guys, please forgive me. But yeah, so I'm just trying to pull out a few actually to show you real quick. So let me see. So I have the Hogan Upper Deck exclusive PMG, which is numbered out of 125, which
Oh
is,
yeah.
I think there's only 33 of them graded. This is the one that you were talking about, the true rookie, and that's, autographed. I do, to answer your question, have a couple modern ones. But for the
Oh,
most,
okay.
yeah, for the most part, I do kind of stick with the vintage. And the Hogan's, it's with the wrestling, the prism was just like skyrocketed. There was so much. I mean, it was well documented. Even the people that were not wrestling fans were really trying to get in on like buying boxes and flipping wax of it. I think the numbers got really inflated, and people were asking astronomical numbers for like the prism gold Hulk Hogan's, and it's like you hear stories about, someone will have like a gold prism. There's no public sales, but the guy selling it is like, listen, I know someone that just sold it for 10 grand. So I'm asking 10 grand, and that's a fair price. And I'm like, there's no comps on it. The
Yeah.
prism prices were super inflated. Um, I'm more of a vintage guy as it is. I think I'm gonna pass. And then, finally one ends up going on auction like months later, and I think it went for like 3K. I was like, thank
Okay.
God,
Yeah.
because like FOMO is real. FOMO is real, so you see something like that come out and get made available, and it's like, do I want to go after that? But
Yeah. And there's so many cool cards, frankly. I mean, the stuff they come out with, as much as we talk about the delays and the new products, and man, they could do better with quality control. They're still coming out with some damn good looking stuff.
yeah.
I mean, they are coming out with some good stuff. And Neo's on here too. You guys are hilarious. So yeah, Charles did cheat, by the way. He absolutely cheated.
Multiple
Let's
device user. That's a smart man if that's the case. Then, kudos to Charles for beating the system.
yeah,
Sticking it to
you'll
the man.
Rob, if you haven't met Michael Ham, and well, we talked about Steve actually before you came on. You got to meet Steve, and we're at the National for
Yeah.
sure. There's a lot of these guys in here you'll meet at the National if you haven't already. Let's skip over to you're a big show guy. You go to a lot of shows, and I think one of the topics we wanted to cover is just kind of our collectors getting priced out of show pricing to where maybe they moved more towards online sales. And I think that like I made a video today, and it's funny because I have like Stranger Things as my non-sports kind of culture
I
cards
love
thing.
that, by the way.
Yeah, it's fun, but the video I made was like, hey, be really careful with price discovery on non-culture on the culture card stuff because everything's low pop. You always hear like, oh, it's a pop 3 or whatever. Well, it's all low pop because no one's graded it. Like people just started grading a lot of this stuff over the last couple of years. But I think that, but I guess that's my question for you is when you go to a show, I know there's a lot more of a focus around, hey, instead of having Zion Prism PSA 10s, I'm more focused on stuff that's rare and that a collector would want, which I think is smart. I think that's actually a really good plan for a dealer, but you can also kind of name your price because you don't really see, there's not a lot of comps on it and that sort of thing. So what are you seeing out there? Are more and more people moving towards those like one of a kind, where it's like their whole table is more of like the rare stuff? Or is it a mix like where they've got the high pop, like the Burrows and the Herberts and all that stuff? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Listen, when I'm at shows for the most part, and I think that the Philly show that you were at, you and I had plans to meet up there,
Yeah.
somehow missed each other, right? We were both there on Saturday. Philly was a bit of an anomaly, like, because that's just like, I think that you can't really use that as the norm because that's a very vintage heavy show, which I thought was awesome. I'm a big vintage guy, and I love that show. But for the most part, what I am seeing at shows, and please in the comments, guys, if you're seeing otherwise, definitely comment. I'm seeing a lot of quarterbacks. It really feels like football has, and I don't know if the numbers support it. I'm just going based on what the temperature feels like. It does feel like football is starting to overtake basketball as like the hottest of the hot thing, and these quarterback cards, I mean, whether if it's Burrow, whether if it's Herbert, Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be the hottest quarterback going into national. It does kind of feel like guys are just playing hot potato, and they're just kind of like, oh, got this Trevor Lawrence for 4,500. Let's see if I could flip it for 5. And then they boom, put it onto someone for 5. And then the guy who gets it for 5, figures out he can only move it for 4,600, boom, moves it for 46. And they kind of toss it back and forth until comps slowly, hopefully for those guys, right? Hopefully slowly creep up as the football season gets more near. But that's what everyone thought was going to happen last summer. But the market was doing this, was going down. So if I know for me, there was football cards that I bought in March and April, and the comps were kind of close to the same in July. It was like really bizarre.
Yeah. Do you think that with basketball, if you look at the recent draft classes, Luka's not really that happy with the Mavs. Like I saw something where it's like basketball used to be fun for me. And, like he's kind of, somewhat, I wouldn't say disgruntled, but I think he just is competitive and, they're just struggling. And then Trae Young kind of like falling by the wayside. That's that draft. I mean, there's other guys obviously that
Yeah.
have come out of those classes, but then you got like Zion Ja, where it's like, what's going on with Ja? Zion's been hurt. Whereas in football, it's like, oh, we got Jalen Hurts popping off. We got Mahomes that's doing good. Like there's like more excitement around like these recent draft classes.
Yeah, and I think, with football, I'm going to be Captain Obvious here, but, with football now, there's only 17 games a season, and every game means so much. Like players cannot take a game off. They can't just kind of half-ass it, if you will. Whereas in basketball, I think we all know sometimes they're just kind of running up and down the court, scoring 140 points a game. No one's really playing that great a defense because they don't want to wear themselves out. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it seems like quarterbacks have really taken over. And I think when you look at what the last couple draft classes have been with basketball, I think it's kind of hard to say who's going to be that next guy because, the names that I could remember really hearing were LaMelo Ball, then it was Cade Cunningham. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, we don't know what's going on with those guys now, personally.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's kind of like who's coming up to be the next stars, who are we excited about? Right now it hasn't, it's not really showing quite yet. And then also too with basketball, with load management, the way that the players just kind of dictate when they're going to play. It's like, and I understand injuries and everything, but I also think back to the late '80s and '90s, and I just don't remember Jordan and Bird and these guys missing very many games. I
Yeah.
almost feel like for the NBA, it's like, why have an 82 game season? Just have a 30 game season. These guys play it out, just duke it out and then have your playoffs and be done with it. Because it just seems like if you have 82 games, I know it's for revenue, but people are then buying tickets for games where the stars are sitting out. It's like that sucks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, and I'm curious as to what your experience was at Philly because I know when I was in Philly, right, I went there, I had cash with me, I had a Zion box full of cards that were had value, and I was looking to move and maybe move up into something bigger, better, or maybe just different. I'm looking to always kind of curate my collection, but it seemed like almost every dealer was at least at least 30 to 50% over comps. It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how high some of these dealers were, but a quote that I love to use is participation is required. So I look at it like I know in that room, if there's 200 dealers, there's got to be at least 10% of those dealers that are going there that day saying, man, I need to make 5K today for probably life reasons, right? Like, whatever the case, I need to get some money for some bills for this or that, blah, blah, blah. So it's about going up to the tables. It's about putting in that work, putting in that grind of going up to the tables, finding cards, asking guys what their prices are they firm on them, and just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And eventually you will start to come across these dealers that are like, wow, okay, this guy's willing to, first of all, I asked him the price, and the price that he has this card at is the last comp. maybe
Yeah.
he's willing to go down a little bit. And I know that if everyone buys cards under comps, eventually everything will go to zero. But what I'm saying is, it did feel like almost all of Philly was really high on prices. And that gets me nervous about shows in general when that happens, because like I start thinking worst case scenario, and I'm like, well, if everyone's always high at shows, because this has happened the last few shows I've been at, it just seems like everyone's really high compared to what comps are. And it's probably because they're into the cards for more. So I get it. It makes sense. But if I know I can just go online with the cash I have in my pocket right now and probably find the card for close to comps, why am I going to pay a 30% fee just to buy it in person?
That's the thing. I think you kind of nailed it. And something that I've been watching, yes, there are kind of like, bins with offers where you can kind of make an offer and make a deal. But for a lot of stuff, I'm just looking for auctions. I'm just waiting, looking for auctions. And then typically, between all the different selling sites, you have so many different ones. And granted, I don't use all of them, but between PWCC and eBay and you've got my slabs and just kind of like you're looking at all the different options. There's stuff that's going to slip through the cracks, and there's people that are just going to be like, hey, I just need to get out of this. I think it's just more of like if you're there at the right time, like if you're just if you're ready, you're waiting, then it'll pop up unless you're looking for stuff that's one of ones or we're not talking about the stuff that's mega scarce, but yeah, it is. I almost feel like too. Think about and again, like I don't have dealer experience. It's something I want to do more of. Probably like 6 months out from doing stuff like
We
that.
should definitely set up
I
together
think that would
sometime.
be fun. But
Yeah,
you know what I would do if I was a dealer? Because I feel like you always see like sticker cards or don't sticker them. Like there's always that debate of like, put prices on or don't put prices on. But what if you just stickered up like 10 cards? Like if you've got, you pick like 10 cards where you're like, I'm going to be really competitive on pricing, or maybe you're under comps on these dozen cards in your showcase. But then it almost gives the person that walks up, like for me, I go right up to a table, I look, and if I see 2 or 3 cards that look overpriced, I walk away. It's over before it ever even starts. And I know that a lot of people do the same thing. They'll walk up, they'll be like, hey, how much is this? Oh, okay, cool. And then they assume they assume like all of it is overpriced, but I don't know. And again, I don't know dealer strategy, but I would think that you would want to try to draw some people in with some good, like solid stickers on stuff where you're like, this is something I know is pretty liquid. Like people are going to want this and I'm going to sell this like at comp or under comp or whatever. And like draw them in. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and that always is the big debate. And for the most part, I've always priced my cards. I've always priced them because I know, as someone that walks shows as well, I know that I am someone that likes to see prices. I don't want to
And
ask, I don't want to
yeah,
start asking about every card, because chances are I'm kind of curious where you're at on half the cards in your case. If I'm walking up to your case and I'm spending some time there, it's because I see some stuff that I like. But take for instance that Philly show. It's like I'm standing there for 10 minutes just waiting to get the dealer's attention because the place was so packed.
yeah,
And that's not a knock on the Philly show, because the Philly promoter obviously does an incredible job. He does an incredible job at packing that place. I mean, Michael Rubin showed up and walked out some of the Philadelphia 76ers there. He was the promoter was able to get Sports Card Dad to show up there. I
never
mean,
happens. That never happens.
never happened. So, so you can't knock the promoter. So it comes down to I just don't want I would hate to see a dip in show attendance because it just becomes the norm that dealers are too high. And
Yeah.
you know,
I'm gonna shift over. I remember I was just a thought that popped in my head. I don't know if you saw on IG, but Michael Rubin was in the Burbank shop, and he was with a young collector. I think a Devin Booker collector, and then FaceTimed with Devin Booker while he was in there. And the thing that's and people are like, wow, that's like insane. Because when you think about like with Fanatics, it's always like you either love the idea or hate the idea. It's like, oh, we're excited. We got a big company coming in that actually might, knows like there's sports people involved. Then at the same time, it's like, yeah, but it's a monopoly. Like, what's their motivation to do good stuff and all that? The one thing I'm really like just watching is like Michael Rubin is just such like a beast, and he's going to be like so popular in the space just for how well connected he is with all, whether it be celebrities or musicians or athletes or whatever. But like, can his people deliver? Like, can his company deliver? Like, that's going to be the thing, because he's the vision. Like, he's got the vision part figured out. Like, that part is fine. Like, he's going to have all the vision, and he's going to be out front, and he's going to be doing all these cool things and probably have a lot of different collector experience stuff. But can they deliver on great cards? And can they deliver on, great, product ideas and different things? That's going to be what I'm watching.
I have no reason to think that he won't. I have a close friend, Craig. He's at New York City Sports Cards on Instagram, and he says that he has so much faith in Rubin. I mean, and this is a guy, my buddy Craig, who he's a realist. He's not someone that is always like, oh, cards to the moon. He's not one of those guys. But he's like, listen, Rubin is going to do things to this hobby that is going to blow our minds. So stay tuned. He's like, I don't even believe in Fanatics as much as I believe in Rubin. Rubin will not let this fail. And it seems like Rubin does have kind of like that Elon Musk type cult following of people that are just like, Rubin is the guy. So, I mean, I'm
he's
hopeful.
popular. He's more popular than I was thinking like Adam Silver's like a popular commissioner.
Yeah.
He's like more popular than the commissioner. I mean, like, he's just it's wild. He's like the Pied Piper. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Without a doubt. So yeah, with everything going on in the hobby, and it's like, it feels like the hobby is kind of waiting with bated breath, right? It's like every day that passes, we get closer to Fanatics and everything like that. And it just seems like there's been a lot of stuff going on in the hobby, and I saw a video that you posted a few days ago, and I think I texted you immediately after I saw it, and you had talked about and don't get me wrong, I know a ton of people are out there talking about it, but you did it in such an eloquent kind of way, and I think for me at least it was unexpected to come from you, because we have a lot of hobby watchdogs and junior hobby watchdogs, and shout out to all them.
There's a lot of people that don't like me, frankly.
That don't like you?
Yeah.
Listen, I don't like you either. I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Okay.
I clicked on a link and,
That's okay. That's why this hand-to-hand combat stuff is what I'm here for it.
Yeah.
We got to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. But with, these bad actors that seem like continue to pop up in the hobby, it's like with these guys and the whatnot breakers and you hear about some content creators that are doing staged deals, and things like that, and both those things I think can be extremely dangerous for the hobby. And that's not really my lane, is to like really speak on this stuff. Like even right now, like I'm not like the most comfortable speaking on it, because
Sure.
I don't really like to cast any kind of I'll let the hobby watchdogs do that. But I think the hobby watchdogs are a necessary part, and I've had a couple that have DM'd with me, over the last few weeks, and Steve Splenda being one of them, and has really educated me on some things that like I think I turn a blind eye to, and it's not because I co-sign it, but it's because I'm like, listen, I don't even want to know about that. Like I'm in my collector lane. Like I'm doing what I'm doing here, but and it almost feels like that's where you are too. But then you put out a video the other day, and can you tell me a little bit about your mindset behind putting out that video and really kind of calling it out?
Well, I like to toe the line between all sides of it, and also it just keeps, my number one goal is to entertain here. Like, I mean, look, the world's full of all the craziness and like there's, you turn on the news, it's bad. Like I want my channel to mostly be just goofiness,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I like to mix in where there might be a hobby topic or something where I don't really like it. I like to talk about those things too. And for the stage deal thing, I mean, look, it's something, I think it was Steve or Neo or one of those guys had brought it up too. It's something like, look, if you and Ken were like, hey, let's make a deal on this card, and you decided like, let's film it and work it up and, like make it all dramatic and stuff, and we'll put it on YouTube. I think that's totally fine as long as like that was the deal that happened. Like maybe you're like, oh, 5,000, no, 1,000, no, $5, and you landed at $50 and that deal happened, then great, fine. And then also I would say, people can make whatever they want, but I also don't think it's bad for people to say like, yeah, people can make whatever they want and put it out there, but it's okay for people like me or for others to say like, that wasn't a real deal. So if you're like looking at that as like those folks are like, making those deals and that's happening, they actually came out and said that that wasn't a real deal, so that's, to me, I mean, I don't know, you have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt, obviously, that you see on social media, but it made me question too. It made me think about like, well, damn, I mean, like, what's real and what's not real? And granted, like, probably the vast majority, like, I know Jeff Wilson gets brought up. I don't think that Jeff Wilson's doing, a stage deal. Or now, is he doing things for the camera and videoing it? Yeah, he is. But do I think he's actually spending his money? Yes, I do think he's spending his money. So, I think you can dramatize something kind of like what you would see on a Pawn Stars or Storage Wars or whatever. But if it's something to where it's not actually real, then I don't know. It just, that seems inauthentic to me. But people can watch whatever they want. Maybe a lot of people watch that and we're like, hey, I don't mind that. Like, that's entertaining to me, even though it was a fake deal. I just think that, at some point it's like, why do we have to get so creative? Like, do we have to get that creative to get something out? Like a fake pack battle or a fake deal or whatever. I mean, like, there's plenty of stuff to talk about to get attention. We don't, like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I tell you, so there were two things that I filmed that I did. They were both at shows that I was set up at. The first one, I did a rock paper scissor with a guy, and it was over $100 difference. It was over $100 difference. We said, let's film this. Let's do rock paper scissor, right? It got like, I don't know, I think it got like 5,000 views on my Instagram reel, and I won that. I felt great about that. I was like, yes, yes, it just felt so good. I don't care if I saved $1, like it ended up being 100, but it felt good to win, and then a second one I did was with Kevin the Captain 37 on Instagram. It was at the Foxwood show that Card Vault put on, and I think I was buying like $3,400 worth of cards from him, and we were like negotiating, and we're like $100 away, and he was like, let's roll the dice. So we filmed it, let's roll the dice, and I won the dice roll, and I was like, yes, and it was like, so both those moments were real, and I felt great about them, but they weren't like incredibly dramatic moments, so to think that like my real, and it's not about me, I'm just using those as examples, to think that like the real genuine moments are probably getting much overshadowed by scripted things and by fake things, like, and then you look at that on more of a macro level, that's kind of, and then I'm talking to my buddy Tony from Cousins Collectibles today, and we were talking about the PMG set, the upper deck PMG set that I just showed you. So I have the Hulk Hogan, and really the three biggest cards in this set. It's out of 125. They were given to upper deck employees as a Christmas bonus, like in 2013 as a Christmas gift. And the three biggest guys in here are Hogan, Mike Tyson, and Tiger Woods. Now, the Tiger Woods PMG is clearly the most valuable one. I think one might have sold for $100K at one point during the peak. But the Tyson and the Hogan one, we were talking on the phone today about it. Those are probably pretty comparable cards, the Hogan and the Tyson. And I said, if I were to make a deal with Dustin and it was a fake deal, and I were to say, hey, I just made a deal. Dustin just acquired my Hogan PMG for $12K. Well,
Right.
people that
They would
even if
remember.
that even if
Yeah.
there's no digital footprint of that, right? I think when you have a certain amount of influence, that creates this mindset that this is a 12K card. This
Yes.
is a 12K card. We're filming it, we're putting it out on YouTube, like that kind of thing. And really, I do have to give it to Steve Splenda for really kind of educating me on this, like, and being like, Rob, listen, dude, I know like you tend to ignore like the drama and ignore this kind of stuff, but it's important to the hobby for this reason. And as he explained it to me, I was like, yeah, man, like you're absolutely right. Like we I think, you know, we need to try to do our best to maintain the integrity of the hobby, I guess, you know, and I'm not trying to take any shots at anyone that was, you know, in that video per se. I'm friends with one or two of them, you know, so I'm not trying to, but it leads to
So
a much
what you're
bigger.
saying is you'll be on the next one they do.
No, definitely
Yeah.
not. And I shouldn't say friends, but yes, but, you know what I mean? Like, I try not to have any bad relationships, you know, but I think, you know, the integrity of the hobby is much more important than relationships. I think that's what I'm getting at.
And I think too, it's not like it's some sort of a weird thing to try to get creative with scripted stuff. I mean, if you look at like my wife and I watch like The Farmer Wants a Wife. It's this goofy show with like farmers that are looking for a wife in Australia, and it's all scripted. You know, one show that I stopped watching because I didn't realize how scripted it was, but it was the House Hunter show where they're picking between three houses in the show.
Oh,
I found out later on that those were all decided on before the show, but like before the ending. And that I stopped watching it at that point because it completely eliminated that mystery that I thought I was watching. The thing where it gets a little wonky, I think you can script hobby content, but when you start talking about sales, buying and selling, and you're talking about comps, that's
yes.
where there's kind of that's a line there because people are going to look at like collectibles are it's a weird place. It's not the stock market. It's not, you know, like stocks that go up and down. There's enough volume there to where you can track sales. You can easily track sales. There's just so much volume on stock unless you're doing penny stocks. But collectibles, especially when you're looking at kind of these one of a kind things, it's just about what somebody will pay for it. It's a Wild West deal. So when you're getting into buying and selling and that sort of thing, it gets a little sticky in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So check out the comments real quick. Anything going
I
on in the
know.
comments? We're talking a lot here.
Yeah, the joke is I'm always way behind on comments. So apologies, guys. I'm going to try to kind of skim through. If you see anything too, Rob, that you want to see me throw up here, most of it's just making fun of me having like Steve said here, I've got two friends that are both middle-aged and bald. Fair enough. Most of it's just the usual cracks.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, sports car. Yeah, I've seen you've had some beef with those guys because they decided they were going to buy from Golden. I guess that ruffled some feathers. I mean, look, we're entertainers here on YouTube. You know, that's the thing that I think that people have to understand. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of my stuff is, you know, really goofy. And then we talk about some serious topics, but it's all meant to be entertaining first.
Yeah. And you know what too, like I realize that no one's perfect, especially when you're putting out content. You know, I think for us it all starts as a passion project, right? It all starts because we're passionate about it. And we love the cardboard. That's what it comes down to, is we love the cardboard. And I don't think anyone's perfect. I think that sometimes people can content creators can say something, and I think it could either a get taken out of context or a kind of manipulated to fit a narrative. So I don't like that gang up mentality when it comes to people, you know, like I
Sure.
don't think anyone should ever be canceled from the hobby unless, you know, I mean, there's a couple big crimes, like right, like theft, like if you're stealing
Right.
cards from
You're
people,
trimming
if you're
or
you're
whatever.
trimming, exactly, things like
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? But it's like I realize no one's perfect, man, and I'm always on the side of forgiveness, other than pointing fingers, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of canceling and then also virtue signaling, which is what you're talking about, where it's basically like the white knight, like, you know, the virtuous person that's going to talk, you know, is going to teach everybody else how to be a moral individual. And it's like, look, we've all got our flaws. We're all flawed. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're human. You know, I mean, it is what it is.
yeah.
All right, I'm trying to get through all of the Dustin sucks comments. Let's see. Guys, we're 135 strong. So thank you for showing up tonight. Man, I need to
Let's
have Rob
go.
on more often. Actually, we did a little Weasley thing, not Weasley. There is a new feature on StreamYard. I shouldn't even be talking about this, but actually, Rob and Steve know about this. But you can actually hook it up to where now, I think that you can do it for all the plans. I'm not sure. I'm on like the level up plan. But so the guest we can stream to the guests channel as well. So now this is the first time I've ever done it. So I'm assuming this is also streaming on yours, Rob.
I think so, yep.
Okay. So getting a boost in the ratings, more channels.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, man. So just to bring it back to Dinged Corners, which is
Yes.
our collab series between Dustin, Sports Card Dad, and me, Sports Card Therapist. It's just something I think it felt like. I don't know if it felt like it organically came together. I think that's like the cliche answer, or if it was something that was. I know you and I, we had talked a bunch of times that like, hey, love your stuff, love your stuff. Um, and we said, let's do an episode. I talked about bringing you on my show. And I think by the time I was done with like kind of spitballing ideas with you, I sent you a ton of stuff, and we had both said like, listen, I think we could probably make multiple episodes out of this, so
Yeah.
why don't we try to see if we could do 3 episodes out of this. And that's what we did. So we recorded 3 episodes a few days ago, and they're going to drop once a week over the course of the next 3 weeks. So episode one's going to drop tomorrow on your YouTube channel, right? It's
Yes.
also going to drop on my YouTube channel, which is much smaller in comparison to Dustin's. I only have 3,000 subscribers. Dustin's about to crack 100K, and then I'm gonna.
We need to actually, you know what? We need to have Jeff Wilson on as a guest and get him to share. So it's streaming on SCI and Sports Card Radio. Bring everybody in. Let's just get everybody in on the stream.
Oh, that would be an ugly show. That would be ugly.
Actually,
Um,
I will try to set that up for the people that are watching. If I can get Jeff, if I can get Sports Card Radio, if I can just get everybody just in, I don't know how many I can have on, 8 or 10 people, and we're just kind of like barking at each other for an hour.
yeah.
If I can pull it off, I'll try, guys. I'll try.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's also going to be the show's going to be streaming on my podcast, Sports Card Therapist. It's on Apple Podcast, it's on Spotify Podcast, and I see in the comments Steve Splenda says, because I've shouted out Splenda a couple times now, he says I don't deserve all the credit. It goes to LT, AIH, and Dan the Card Man, and Hobby Shark too. And it's funny, Steve, that you mentioned Hobby Shark, because I'm actually going to be hosting a panel and a panel and a trade night at the Basketball Hall of Fame, April 8th in Springfield, Mass. So, and I actually invited Hobby Shark on there. So it's got some really cool guests that are lined up that are going to be on the panel. We have Hobby Shark, we have Ken from Sports Card Lessons, we have Mike Kantz, who's MC Sports Cards on eBay, one of the biggest
Oh,
sports
yeah.
cards consigners there is. We have Chris Costa from Card Vault. We have John
Wow.
Newman from Sports Card Nation podcast, and we have Jonathan, the basketball card guy. So all those guys are going to be on the panel. I'm going to be hosting it. This is the second one that I've hosted, and last time it was a packed theater. And then so that goes for about an hour, and then after the panel talk, then we all go over to what they call full court. That's there, and there's a trade night for like 3 hours. It's freaking
Wow.
awesome.
So you've already done one of these.
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, so it's awesome, man. I mean, living up here in the Northeast, shout out to anyone that doesn't live in the Northeast, because listen, in the Northeast, our cup runneth over with shows and opportunities like this. It's like I could throw a rock, or I could throw, rock in any direction and hit a show on any given weekend. So, it's a really active place in the hobby around here.
Sorry, guys, my dial-up just went down, so I had to fire it back up. Put the AOL floppy disk back in, and we are back. Rob, if I do go down, I just have to like cut off my internet and bring it back. So good thing that this is happening towards the end of the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to kind of follow up on what Rob was saying. I mean, yeah, we did a 3-part series to start. The one thing that kind of drew me to Rob as well is it's not just about, like, obviously he's talking about cardboard, but he's also tying in life, and we're both fathers and all kind of like all the stuff. And there's a lot of kind of deeper meaning to a lot of this stuff that we kind of dive into as well. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. And who knows, maybe we'll be doing more of those types of episodes. So
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you guys checking it out.
Yeah, definitely. And so in episode 1, just to give you a little sneak peek, we touched on, why do we collect? And it wasn't, obviously the cliche stuff like, nostalgia and whatnot, but we also talked about how collecting can fill voids. It could fill voids that we feel in our lives that maybe, feels like we're missing something. And we also, talked about how in a way it's almost like as individuals, I know for me who is highly vintage focused, I feel like I'm playing my tiny, tiny role in preserving history.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much about the sport, so much about pre-war cards and whatnot, and I'm trying to pass that on to the masses. And it's not that I'm trying to pump vintage, it's just that I love it, so it's like, I find myself just so excited about it. And
I
yeah.
think what's gonna be big too is I've made the reference before, but my dad and my parents used to go antique shopping. Like, that was their thing, is like, "Let's go and look at old trunks and stuff." And as a kid, it was like, "God, this is so boring." But I think that, like, vintage cards are going to be like the antique shopping for us, like, when we're older, like, when we're, 60 or something. I do think that the card, the cards, the Philly card show is a perfect example of an antique show, that I think
Yeah.
that instead of going and looking at old random whatevers, that a lot of folks will be looking at that stuff. And then remembering kind of like the stuff that we collected in the 80s. And then in 20 years, we'll be looking at like, oh wow, I remember the stuff I was buying like 20, 25 years ago. Look at what it's doing now or whatever. Like look at what they have now.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. So hopefully you guys, and thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Thank you to everyone that's been commenting. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you guys give our show a chance. Dinged Corners, and that name was uh Dustin came up with that name, and I came up with the picture. I took one. I'm set building 1951 Bowman, so I grabbed one of my 51 Bowman cards, and that was already kind of rough, and I just kind of bent the corner up a little bit, and took it at a nice angle so it can make a nice backdrop. And so yeah, so the card in the picture is actually owned by me. It's in my set build right now. I'm about I'm about 3/4 the way done with this 1951 Bowman set, and I do have the biggest
Wow.
card. I do have the biggest card in the set too, by the way. If I can't find it in about 2 seconds, then I'll stop looking. But
Yeah, when we were talking about staging deals earlier, I was talking directly about Steve Splenda, by the way. Neo just confirmed it here. And I trust Rob. If he said that Steve does that, then that's the stuff we're talking about. Just kidding, Steve. Just kidding. I'll have to meet him. I've never met Steve Splenda, but I'm sure we'll catch up at some point.
Yeah, man. And what's cool too is with Splenda, I think you got to have like a really like cool name like that to like, to kind of stand out amongst people, you know what I mean? It's like if your name
Yeah.
is Joe Smith, how many Joe Smiths do you come across, but like you come across like Splenda,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. If it
know?
was like Steve Sweetenlow, no, forget it. Forget it. I want the Splenda. I don't want
Yeah,
the Sweetenlow.
absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, man, listen,
All right.
this
Should we
is
wrap? Should we
yeah, I
wrap?
think so, man. I think we should wrap her
All
up.
right. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks very much for joining Rob. This was fun, obviously. So yeah, let's do this more often, the live streams. And yeah, we'll have the shows, the dinged corners. They will be coming. So keep an eye out for those guys.
Yeah.
Rob, anything? Oh, where can they find you? For anyone that might be new to you.
Yeah, just I'm sports card therapist across the board. So my main really my main platform has been the podcast. That's really what's gotten me to, where I'm at this point is the podcast. So Apple, Spotify, and I mostly use Instagram. So I'm a little bit on Twitter, but I'm not that active on there. So and what about you, Dustin? Where can everyone find you?
Sports card dad everywhere all day. We'll yeah. Do I have anything that's not sports card dad left? I don't think so. Actually, I think I might be personal finance dad on TikTok because I use that like twice. So I need to actually my teenagers are like, Dad, you've really got to like shape up your short form content. So we'll see. Hopefully they can help me out there. We'll see how that
Yeah.
goes. All right, guys. Thanks again. Rob, we will see you later, man.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Thanks.